Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to be talking about Bernie Sanders and his Fox News town hall. All right, so let's talk about it. I love this Bernie Sanders Fox News town hall. I thought it was really fantastic. First thing I want to do is I just want to say a big thank you to Bernie Sanders for doing this and for Fox News for having him, right? It was very entertaining to watch. This was a verbal sparring match. I really enjoyed it. Bernie and Fox News were both throwing jabs and taking jabs, right? Excuse me. And I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was really interesting to see them coming from polar opposite positions and having a civil discourse and showing respect for each other in questions and showing respect for each other in answers, but also showing that they were fundamentally disagreeing with each other at virtually every turn, and that people who don't agree with each other and and come from 180-degree positions can have a civil discourse. I thought that was absolutely important. Like, what is the relationship between Bernie Sanders and Fox News? Well, I can tell you this, right? It's hard to say what exactly their relationship is, but when this was done, I think they were a lot closer to being rivals than they are to being enemies, and that's good positioning. That's progress, right? And I think that's really important. So today I want to talk about what I learned about Bernie Sanders and what I learned from Bernie Sanders in the Fox News town hall. There was a lot there. There really was a lot there. So one, I came out with a much higher opinion of Bernie Sanders as a person, right? We'll talk about my opinion of him as a politician at the very end, and specifically as a primary candidate. So essentially, I really learned, of course, that he is courageous. It was courageous to go into this situation knowing you're going into, you're dealing with an entire corporation that is fundamentally opposed to everything you stand for, right? So it was courageous of Bernie to go into this situation and answer any and all coming questions. I have so much respect for that. So many politicians attempt to control the stage they're on, control the questions they're asked, right? And I really love this when a candidate has enough confidence to just stand and take any questions that come, right? And they're confident in their own ability to answer on the fly rather than their ability to stage the questions. It's a lot better, right? He has veracity. That's a fancy way of saying he's truthful, right? He answered some questions where his answer was fundamentally damaging to him as a political candidate. And the only reason you would do that, he's very intelligent, I could tell that. So the only reason an intelligent person would do that is if they're being truthful, right? And frankly, that is a rare commodity today. It's just, you don't see it that often, right? In politics. So he is truthful. I think that's important, right? And then in addition to that, he's tenacious, right? You could tell he's got a fighting spirit to him. I totally get that. And then also by going on to Fox News to answer these questions and showing he can have a civil discourse with people who are 180 degrees opposed to what he stands for, right? That shows he has a genuine interest and a genuine dedication to bipartisanship. And I think we really need a return to bipartisanship. So I was really impressed with everything that Bernie displayed overall in the Fox News town hall. Okay. Now, what did I learn what did I learn about Bernie Sanders? Okay. So during it, I was surprised. Now, there's a whole bunch. I already knew a lot of things going in. So I'm only going to be talking about the things that were new to me, right? I already knew he was a Vermont senator. I already knew he was a socialist and independent. So these are just the things that are new, that aren't obvious about Bernie Sanders, right? So one of the things that really shocked me about Bernie Sanders was that he stands against the right-wing leadership of Israel. This was shocking to me, right? Because Bernie Sanders is Jewish. And I really, I expected that he would be in support of Israel's current leadership, which he's stated he is not. Now, this really shocked me. This is a really important issue to me, right? So one, I think that America's stand for Israel is absolutely, it's preeminent among our policies. It's among our international policies. I think it's incredibly important, right? And I personally am incredibly pro-Israel, and I really think it's important that America remains a strong and capable ally of Israel. It's absolutely critical, right? So Israel has existed since 1948. I'm incredibly surprised that they were able to get their country back, and that they're able to retain it to this day, even as from the very first day, and even before they were a nation. That's one of the things that I was really shocked, right? That for all of history, there has just been a conga line of people who have stood against the Israeli people, right? And ever since they got their nation, particularly, there's just a huge number of nations and groups and people who stand against Israel. So, like, if there's already this vehement, incredibly strong grouping of people standing against Israel, why would Bernie get in that line, right? That does not make any sense to me, right? And it was very disappointing, and it was very surprising for me to find out. I'm just going to take a little bit of a side note. The Jewish people are really a favorite people of mine, favorite international culture. I have two favorite international cultures. The Jewish people and the Japanese people. I'll just talk about my I really, really like the Jewish culture for the following reasons. So one, they love books. More than any culture I've ever seen, ever. They really demonstrate and display and execute a passionate love for books. I love books. I've read about 490 books in my life. I keep a list on Goodreads. Books are literally the most precious physical objects I own. Like, books are incredible, and I love them, and I think they're the most powerful, like, physical tool that humanity has ever built. And more than any other culture, Jewish people absolutely love books, and I think it makes them interesting and funny, and super fun to talk to. And also, the other reason why I really like Jewish culture is I'm a huge fan of New York City. So I'm a big bicyclist. I go up to I do these weekends where I'll go up and I'll come in on a Saturday morning. I'll Airbnb between Saturday and Sunday night. And so I'll 2 days to just bicycle all over the city of New York, and I'll ride 10, 20, 30 miles a day all over, New York City. And so I've seen that city, at ground level. And when you're on a bicycle, you can really see the city in a different light, right? And to me, the kindest, most interesting, most humorous, most wonderful people in New York are the Jewish people of New York. And they come in, they have really different all the Jewish people in New York are really super different. It's incredible. And it's really, I just love the Jewish people. And so I was really shocked to see that, Bernie Sanders, if he gets in, he's not really going to be supportive of Israel's current leadership. And that was shocking to me and a little upsetting to me. So, yeah. All right. The other thing I learned is he is an absolute warlord against the wealthy. He really did. I really feel like he was very clear. He really detests wealth, right? Like he really stands against accruing wealth as an American people. Now, one of the things I think is, like, if you are wealthy, right? I definitely I understand the desire to make sure people acquire wealth legally, right? I think, if people are acquiring wealth illegally, Bernie definitely stands against that. But from everything I could tell, he really is fundamentally opposed to someone just having a super large amount of money, right? To, like, that, he's saying there should be limits to how much money you can accrue, right? And I just fundamentally disagree with that. I don't think that holding wealth is illegal. It certainly isn't illegal. We already know that. I think he thinks it's ethically wrong. I do not think it's ethically wrong for people to have any amount of wealth, right? Basically capitalism allows us to pursue wealth, and Bernie was just saying, we can't allow these corporations to pay no taxes, right? Well, if the laws are set up so that they don't pay any taxes, I'm okay with that, right? Like, if the corporations are following the laws, then you need to change the laws, which Bernie is going to do. But the way he talks about the wealthy really sounds exclusionary to me, right? We're supposed to be moving toward this time where we are thinking about inclusion, right? That all people matter. Well, if all people matter, if it's important that we are including and allowing all lifestyles and that we are embracing all different perspectives, as long as it doesn't harm anyone else, right, then the wealthy should be part of that, right? And he talks about the wealthy in a way like they're less than human. And I really didn't like that. I really don't like that aspect of Bernie. I think he's fundamentally opposed to wealth, not illegal methods of getting wealth. He's opposed to being wealthy, right? Like, and that did not stand well with me. I did not like that aspect, right? And he's an absolute warlord against the wealthy, right? So that's one of the things, because constantly he was just talking about how we're going to take money away from millionaires and billionaires like they had already committed a crime just by being millionaires and billionaires, and that didn't make sense to me, right? I know Bernie Sanders followers are really in a different area with that. I think they agree with him that just being wealthy is a crime in and of itself. I can't co-sign that, right? Now, what did I learn from Bernie Sanders? Well, I learned a lot from Bernie Sanders. He's a really, really bright guy, and one of the things I loved, I have to admit, he's really excellent at, is defining his terms. There's a lot of education that needs to be done in order to follow politics, and politicians need to be able to educate the people that they're trying to explain their policies to, trying to explain their messages to. And so one of them was basically Medicare. I'm a political wonk. I study and read a lot, listen to a lot, and I really didn't understand what Medicare was. Every Democrat is saying, Medicare for all, and I was like, what is Medicare? I don't really even know. So Bernie defined it as a government-run health program for senior citizens that is popular and effective. And I thought, wow, that is an incredibly good description of what Medicare is. Why, and it explained to me in one simple, concise, clear sentence why everybody's talking about Medicare for all, right? So basically, this is a program that's already been proven out with the elderly of America, with the senior citizens of America, and generally most senior citizens like it, and generally most senior citizens would say, and they like it because it's effective, right? And it is a government-run health program, and that's all of it, right? And I really was like, and basically what he's saying is, hey, and essentially it becomes free healthcare, right? Which every Democrat is saying free healthcare, we should be, but nobody's really been defining that, right? And so it was just a concise defining of why people care so much about this Medicare for all. And that was really helpful. So just to have that in my head and understand that basically the reason all these Democrats are saying it is it's already proven, right? You're not bringing in some weird new program that hasn't been proven out, right? So I get it. I still think it's incredibly boring, and I don't think Americans really care about healthcare as much as people say. I think the media cares a lot about healthcare, and I think a lot of people on Twitter care a lot about healthcare. But generally, I think there's a ton of people I think don't care nearly as much about healthcare as the media is trying to make it look like, right? So but that was helpful to learn that from Bernie. The other thing that really shocked me, and this is one of the things that Bernie said that I was amazed he said it because it hurts him so badly as a candidate. So one of the things is when we came up to the election, right, people were talking about Joe Biden and people were talking about Bernie, right? And I'm like, these guys are in their late 70s. This seems like a real concern. They seem too old to run, right? And I immediately caught myself and I said, hey, slow your roll there, Scott Garibay. That sounds prejudiced. You should not prejudge somebody based on a single attribute, right? You can't just say people are too old to run for president. You've got to judge both these candidates on other criteria, and you cannot use age as a factor for why they should or should not be president, right? Well, Bernie Sanders said that's wrong, right? He said, hey, you can look at age when you determine who will be, whether I should be president or any other candidate should be president, right? And I was like, holy cows, wow, right? And he said, and then he talked about his own health. He said, thank God I'm physically healthy right now, right? And I was like, whoa, what? And he was acknowledging that he's 77 years old and that his health is it is a legitimate concern for anybody who wants to think about it as a criteria to not vote. I was stunned by this statement, right? And then he said, hey, here's all these other good reasons that you can vote for me, right? You could consider that as a reason to not vote for me, but here's all these reasons to vote for me. And I thought for sure he would say, listen, everybody's equally capable no matter what their age, right? Kind of give a standard line, right? And he was like, no, he's like, you can look at age as a criteria to not vote for somebody as president. I was like, holy cows, that's an incredible statement. And it speaks to his truthfulness, right? And I was stunned. And I will say, honestly, for Joe Biden and for Bernie Sanders, if you're in your late 70s and you're running and you're going to be the oldest president that has ever existed, and I feel empowered to say this by Bernie's statement because he is close to this. He has standing, right? He is there. He knows what it's like to run for president when you're 73, and now he's doing it again when he's 77, right? And that's incredible, right? And so, and my issue is, I really think the election race, the modern U.S. president's election race, could absolutely kill a healthy 77-year-old because the stress is so high. And the job could absolutely legitimately kill a 77-year-old person, not a healthy one, not because they're unhealthy in any way. The stress is so high. We saw President Obama age in real time. He was in for 8 years and it looked like he was in for 20, right? Like his hair literally grayed in the 8 years. It was like stunning to look at, right? And it is very, very clear that the election races of today do not look like the election races of even 20 years ago, right? And certainly not 200 years ago, right? They take strips off of you mentally, physically, and I think even spiritually, right? This is a gauntlet, right? And frankly, when you run a gauntlet, maybe you shouldn't be 77 years old. Before Bernie spoke to this, I really didn't think you could really consider it, right? But Bernie opened this up and said, yes, you absolutely consider this. And he's saying it because he's there, right? He's like, yeah, my health is a concern, right? It's not the first concern. It's not the only thing you should be thinking about, but it's legit to think about, right? And so I don't think everybody has to write him off because of his age. But if there's genuine concern saying, hey, I don't want the president to die, when if he gets in at 77 years old, right? And he's there for 7 more years, he's 84 years old. That's not a small concern, right? That's a very legitimate concern, right? And I thought I'd give him huge points for pointing this out. Huge points. I really was impressed that he was truthful enough to say that. I mean, it was stunning, right? All right. So basically, my respect for Bernie Sanders personally was greatly increased by seeing him on Fox News and just seeing the way he handled questions. I personally do not think he is a good candidate at all for the Democrat primary. And the reason why is the main reason why. Here's the reason why somebody should not vote for Bernie Sanders and should vote for Andrew Yang, in my opinion, right? He is joyless and impersonal, right? I did not see him laugh a single time. I don't think I saw him smile a single time in the whole thing. Every time I've ever seen him, he seems cranky and cantankerous, right? And I get it, I live in Philly, city of brotherly shove, right? And you can be cantankerous, right? And you can be cranky, but not if you want to win the majority of people in America, right? You can't do that. He seems joyless and he seems very impersonal. Every time he talks about his own personal life or anybody connected to him, it's like he's pulling his own tooth, right? He does not like to talk about himself. In 1840, this would have been just fine. The press did not expect people. The people did not expect but politicians to talk about themselves. In 1940, this would have been fine, right? But this is 2020, right? There's virtually no distinction between the personal and the professional and the political, right? It's just not. It's not a privilege we have anymore. It's just not a luxury these politicians can expect, right? And Bernie expects it. He expects to take his personal life and put it over here in a box, right? It's just not like that anymore, right? Arsenio Hall 20 years ago was asking Clinton, boxers or briefs, man. These horses are already out of the barn, right? And so I find him joyless and impersonal, and I think the odds that Bernie Sanders can beat out the other 14 is virtually none, and the odds that he could beat Donald Trump, absolutely none. I think he is a non-starter because he is joyless and impersonal. And I really think, whereas Andrew Yang has joy, he is personal. I just think he's a way better candidate than Bernie Sanders. And I am talking now because I know there's a ton of people lined up behind Bernie Sanders, and he really may be the number one person. I'm starting to think maybe Bernie Sanders is the number one person that Andrew Yang needs to beat, right? Because he's the one that seems to be getting traction. Pete Buttigieg is getting a lot of traction too. I think that's mostly with the media rather than with the people. I could be wrong there. We'll see how that shakes out. But that's my take. It's my opinion. I really think Bernie can't win the primaries, and he can't win the general because he's joyless and impersonal. It's just my take. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.